I see my name in shining lights, yeah, a different city every night. Oh, I swear the world better prepare for when I'm a billionaire.
It's time to get down to business on the weekend's #1 business program. Known as the King of Networking, your host, Shalom Klein, has worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and created countless jobs. So, to success. Let's get down to business.
And indeed, we're all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship and business. We are all about small business here on Get Down to Business. Check out my website, shalomklein.com. And while you're there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you will not want to miss. We're going to kick it off with a fantastic guest who has been an entrepreneur since dropping out of university at age 19 and now 50 years old. He has built businesses in publishing, digital marketing, adult education and coaching, preschool education, and he sold each and every one of them. During the pandemic, he made 48 business acquisitions to create the fourth largest group in his sector in under 3 years. That's Jonathan J., who is also the author of Business Buying Strategies, and we're going to talk all about that. Jonathan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you. You have quite an interesting background. Let's talk about the very beginning over there, dropping out of university at age 18. What was your plan, and did you ever imagine that you'd be at this point right now?
Well, the plan was to own a business. I didn't know what sort of business I wanted to own. And to be fair, it didn't really go according to plan for a few years. I was I was jumping from one thing to another, not really making much money. And it took me a few years to find my feet. So it's not something that I would recommend to people, even though I did it myself.
Amazing. Amazing. It's quite an impressive story. So as mentioned in your bio, you've really taken advantage of your time during the pandemic, done a lot of acquisitions, which is impressive. So, I want to get into the nuts and bolts over here about business acquisitions, which you talk about in Business Buying Strategies. I'm curious, what is sort of your philosophy, your mindset on who is the right fit for business ownership and buying and selling businesses?
I think that anyone should be able to buy a business. You see, it's always been something that rich people have done, or large companies have done, or private equity has done. I believe that anyone should be able to buy a business. So what I have done is I've created a series of deal structures, which means that an employee or even someone who isn't working can acquire a profitable business without having to spend a penny of their own money. And this means that business acquisition, business ownership is open to anyone who's prepared to put the time in, put the effort in, and learn how to do it.
Okay, Jonathan, you've sold me. Business ownership, super important. But why is buying a business faster than, say, starting a business from scratch?
Well, when you start a business from scratch, you don't know whether it's going to work, do you? You could spend years trying to figure out the right product, the right service, the right pricing, trying to find the customers, build the website, get the office, hire the staff. And you could spend years just finding out whether the product or service is what people want to buy. But when you buy an established, profitable business, you're buying a business that's got a trading history. So it's already got maybe $1 million in annual sales. It's already got the office. It's already got the staff, the website, the marketing. But more importantly than anything, it's already got cash flow. It's got positive cash flow. And when you buy a business with positive cash flow, that positive cash flow goes straight into your pocket from day one.
Indeed. I'm chatting with Jonathan J., who has written the book, quite literally, Business Buying Strategies, the solution to your business growth problem. And indeed, that was a perfect segue into talking about how to do it, most effectively. But, Jonathan, when you got started and you decided after dropping out of university at age 18, 19, I have to assume that you did not have as much cash as you have right now. So for many of our listeners that are, they're nodding their heads vigorously, they agree with you, they want to buy a business, but how can you do it without risking your own cash?
Okay. So the key to this, the secret of this, is to find the right business with the right type of owner, the right person selling. And the person we want to find is someone who is motivated to sell their business for reasons other than making money. And that's typically because Number one, they have made money over the years of business ownership and don't need to make it all on the exit. And number two, there is a motivation for selling sooner rather than later. And that is usually a combination of retirement and ill health. Typically, it's one or the other, or maybe both of those things. So when we have a motivated seller who's motivated by things other than making money upon the sale of their business, if you've got a good relationship with that person, you can structure a deal that allows them to sell for something. I mean, we're not asking people to give us their business for nothing. What we want to be able to do is to finance that acquisition through other means. So there's all different types of finance that we can use to buy the business. But the one that's the easiest for anyone to do, regardless of your credit score, is to do what we call seller finance. And seller finance means that we buy the business now, but we pay for it later. So we pay for the business over 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 or more years out of the profits of the business. So the seller can retire, spend time with the grandchildren, enjoy the world cruise. They can give up the business so they don't have all that stress. You have the business, you have the positive cash flow, and every quarter, every year, a percentage of that profit goes back to the owner of the business in payment for the business.
Interesting. So you have, as we said, made and done 48 acquisitions in less than 3 years. There's a couple of questions I have on that, but let's start with, what is the secret to finding great, not just good, but great businesses to buy?
Well, the secret of finding great businesses to buy is to go off market. If you go to the business brokers, the realtors for businesses, then they are showing the same business to lots of people. It becomes very competitive. The price goes up. And that's just not good for a first-time buyer. A first-time buyer needs to find an owner who wants to sell but hasn't yet advertised the business for sale. So how do we find that person? Well, it's a bit of a numbers game. So what we are doing is we're contacting lots and lots of business owners, and some of them will raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested in talking to you.
Interesting. So again, chatting with Jonathan J over here, who has literally written the book, Business Buying Strategies, the Solution to Your Business Growth Problem. Jonathan, we mentioned that you used the opportunity during the pandemic to stay quite busy, and we'll talk about your work-life balance in just a moment. But 48 business acquisitions, my friend, that's wild. How did you do it?
Well, people ask me what advice I'd give on buying 48 businesses in 2.5 years, and my advice is don't do it. And it was massively stressful. In fact, it was so stressful. The stress of buying 48 businesses combined with a pandemic where no one knew what was happening. I actually ended up in hospital at one point. So I'm a very strong advocate of a healthy work-life balance, because my life was all work during that time. But it was an interesting period because there were more people wanting to sell, but less people wanting to buy. So I saw that as an opportunity. Lots of sellers, very few buyers. So I could basically write the terms of each deal. And I looked at 500 businesses to buy those 48.
Rule of numbers over there. So definitely work-life balance, super important. And I know you talk a lot about that, avoiding that mental, physical burnout. But Jonathan, as we come to a conclusion in our conversation, what is the number one mistake that you've made over your years in business that you want our listeners to avoid? Maybe a little secret over here.
Yeah. So the number one mistake is buying businesses that are underperforming and thinking that you can turn them around. Our ego gets in the way. We say, we know the solution to the problems this business has. What we're going to do, we're going to solve all these problems, and then we're going to have an amazing business that we can sell for a fortune. The reality is it's incredibly hard work. I've done it successfully. I've done it and I failed. I'd never do it again. Buy businesses that are established, profitable, already successful, that will make you money from day one.
Absolutely. Jonathan J., really appreciate our conversation. I've already learned so much, and I know that there's so much more to learn from your book and from all of your work. How can we get in touch with you and continue to follow your important work on business acquisitions?
find me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message there, and find my YouTube channel, Jonathan J on YouTube, over 200 videos on how to buy a business successfully.
Fantastic. Jonathan J., really appreciate you sharing not only the good, but also a little bit of the ugly too, which certainly sometimes the best way to learn the right way to business acquisition, everything business ownership. I know our listeners will appreciate it. We'll put all of the details in the show notes. And speaking of show notes, you can find all of the past 10 plus years of shows all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship by going on your favorite podcast app. Google, Apple, Spotify, doesn't really matter. Just search for Get Down to Business, but make sure you leave a review. Rate, review, and share makes it even easier for others to find out about the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Quick break. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with lots more small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and Get Down to Business.